Hello friends, my name is Zekko and welcome to a brand new video. The Premier League is around the corner. As I am speaking, it is literally days away, which means we have a very special video to be making. We have my Premier League predictions for this season. We're going to be going through every single side and where I think they're going to be finishing in the Premier League this season. Every single position, so that we can all have a look at how wrong I will be in the future. I actually think that this Premier League is extremely difficult to predict, which isn't a new thing, is it? But I think this one in particular is crazy. Specifically the positions between, I think, around about 17th to about 10th, I think are extremely difficult to look at, and it's going to be kind of fun. So join me as we go through my Premier League predictions for this 2022-23 season. Up first, it's never nice, but someone has to be taking that spot. I've gone for Bournemouth. I just don't think they've made enough additions to this side. Scott Parker's side played some decent football down in the Championship, and they were fairly entertaining. 77 goals with 39 conceded. Dominic Solanke getting 29 of those goals. The big question around that, I think, is whether Dominic Solanke can be that kind of player for them in the Premier League. If not, I don't really see where the goals are coming from. They've made a decent addition in Joe Rothwell, but I just don't think it's enough. They haven't spent all too much, and I do have a fear for them that they're a bit of a Championship side trying to rest on their laurels, not going too big in case they go back down. I might be wrong about that. Again, the transfer window is still open. It will be open for another month at the time of recording, so obviously moves could be made, and perhaps they will dip back into the market once they realise, or maybe they find out that it's a little bit too much of a task for them with the squad that they currently have. I like Scott Parker and I like the way he plays football. I just don't think that the way this team is set up with the reliances they have on Dominic Solanke, I just wonder whether they're just going to come unstuck a little bit. So I have Bournemouth in 20th. In 19th place, I have Fulham. They had by far the best squad in the Championship, and they were the best team, hence why they got promoted. They played some very good stuff, and they scored an absolute bucket load of goals. They have added to the squad with the likes of Palhinha and Andreas Pereira, a creative midfielder who has something to prove, and Palhinha is a very good central defensive midfielder who will be able to spray the ball out wide and hopefully, for Fulham, dictate the tempo of play. I wonder whether these players are going to be enough for them though. Aside from that, they've made some decent signings. I just think that a lot of pressure is on Alexander Mitrovic to make sure that he can have a good season. He scored 43 goals in 44 appearances in the Championship, and I'm sorry, I just can't see him replicating that kind of form when he's up against Premier League level centre-backs. Whether he can get the service from his team as well is another thing that's going to be looked at, because Fulham are going to be stifled more than they were in the Championship, and I wonder whether he's going to get the chances that he needs. I also wonder whether he's going to be able to convert the smaller amount of chances that he's going to get in the Premier League. For that reason, I don't think Fulham are going to cope defensively, especially with the likes of the centre-backs they have currently. I think they need to dip into the market once more and get at least one centre-back, maybe two, to try and fortify that defence. Overall, I just think they're going to have a little bit too... They're not going to have enough for this Premier League, and I think they're going to be relegated. They're going to be a good watch and a good team to kind of follow, but I just think that they're going to fall short at one of the final hurdles. Filling out my Premier League relegation table, I have Southampton. I know this will be extremely surprising for a lot of people, but I have some good reasons. They were extremely reliant on James Ward-Prowse, who got them a load of goals, 10 goals I believe, and a bucket load of assists. That is an over-reliance on a midfield player who could or possibly might either leave or get injured. I'm sure Southampton won't want him to leave, but he might want to find football elsewhere. There is a World Cup around the corner, and although he will get a lot of game time at Southampton, you do have to wonder whether he might be persuaded by playing for a bigger side, might get him the attention that he desperately needs to be able to be entered into that World Cup squad. On top of that, they've also lost Armando Broja, who, although he only got 6 goals, He did a lot more than that. He was a good hold-up man, he made good runs into the channels, and I really think he stretched the play when Southampton needed him to. He kept the ball and was a good target man and a good physical presence for Southampton to be able to play off. They don't have him anymore, and I'm not too sure about Adam Armstrong. I just don't know whether he has the correct level of finishing and quality to be able to take Southampton forward. They've signed a good centre-back in Kotchap, and I think he might be okay. They've also got a new striker in Mara, but he's only 19 years old, and to have that much pressure on him going into a new season, I just don't know whether it's going to be enough. Livramento is a massive miss at right back. He's going to be out for quite a while, and when he does come back, will he have that same dynamism that he had playing for Southampton last season? All of these question marks are leading me to think that I'm just not quite sure whether Southampton are going to have enough to stay up. Ralph Hasenhüttl has very good moments, but he also has very bad moments, and I do feel like this might spiral out of control for him sooner rather than later. He might be one of the candidates to be sacked by Southampton, because I just think that when it does go wrong and it does spiral, I'm not sure that he's going to have the resources at hand to be able to control the situation. For that reason, I think Southampton might be destined for the drop. Just missing out on the drop zone, I think, is Nottingham Forest. They had a decent season last season. Clearly, getting promoted was a success for them, and I think they've tried to go big and bold. They've made a load of signings, and if I'm completely honest, I think that might be one of the areas in which they struggle. They've made so many signings that I think might be difficult for Steve Cooper to be able to embed all of these players within the squad. Nico Williams is a good signing, and I do like some of the replacements for James Garner, and obviously Nico Williams is the replacement for Jed Spence. I just wonder whether getting all of these players through the door might hinder their progression in enhancing their style of play, enhancing the way they play in the Premier League. It's a big risk, and it's one that I think will pay off for Nottingham Forest because I think they will survive. I just wonder towards the start of the season whether they might struggle to really bed in these ideas and really bed in these players. Jesse Lingard, I think, is another example of quite a dangerous move, quite a risky move, but I think one that might pay dividends for them. I think he's a good footballer. Clearly, West Ham wanted him for a reason, and I think he's still got some quality about him. He's got a good ability on the ball, he's got good drive, he picks up some good positions, and he's also a willing runner, he's a willing worker, and I think although they're paying a lot of money for him in terms of his wage, I think that overall it might be a decent signing. He's going to want to try and get into that England camp, and I think he might be seeing this as a bit of a project for him, something that he can really take forwards, and I think if he has the right attitude about it, he could really benefit Nottingham Forest in the long run. I think that Nottingham Forest will eventually, after a hard-fought battle, stay in the Premier League, which is really what they could ask for and what they really want this season, and I think the signings eventually will come good and keep them up. Up in 16th place, I have Brentford, who had a sensational year last season. They were absolutely brilliant, finishing in 13th and really getting away from that drop zone, which everyone thought would cause them issues. I think it might cause them a little bit more of an issue this season. They've had a massive loss in Christian Eriksen, and although I think they have a stable, steady squad, Ivan Toney is still very good. They do need to keep him, though. Mbuemo should come out of his cell, and I think Vita is a very good option. I think you're going to see a back four being played, and I think that it will still be a good season for Brentford, because I think staying in the league is a good season. They will still have a bit of a worry about that relegation, though. I will say, though, if they get Mikkel Damsgaard through the door as a replacement for that Christian Eriksen signing, I do think that would bump them up the table a little bit. But so far it hasn't happened, and Sampdoria, from what I understand, are playing hardball. It remains a matter of time. There's still a month in the window left, so perhaps I do an updated version of this once I see the transfer market. But at this current point in time, before the season starts, I think Brentford are going to be okay. They're going to be in 16th. It's not going to be too crazy. They're going to be going along, minding their own business, picking up points here or there, and having some fun. That's just what Brentford do. In 15th position, I have Leeds United. They have lost their two main players in Calvin Phillips and Rafinha, so I do think they are going to struggle a little bit more than would be expected. But they have made a load of additions, and I do think they have made some very smart signings. How long it takes to bed in those signings is another question, though. I do think they might suffer from the same thing that Nottingham Forest might do, but I think they're a little bit higher because I think they have a foundation of Premier League ready players who understand what the league demands and what the league requires. I think Patrick Bamford is a good player. Daniel James is good as well, and I think Jack Harrison is going to be utilised a lot more in terms of a defensive sense than I think he might have been previously. They need to keep hold of these players and make sure that they can keep them because their squad is quite thin. I do think a couple more signings, a striker in particular, and perhaps a defensive player might help them to stay in the Premier League and go forwards. But overall, I think the signings they've made, Mark Rocker being one of them, and the amount of young talent, especially Tyler Adams from Leipzig, I think are very, very good signings. They've made a lot, but they just need to bed in these players. Jesse Marsch needs to be given a little bit of time, a little bit of patience to be able to make sure that they can get their flowing, attacking football working. I think it's going to be an interesting system if he's given the time to be able to implement his style of play. And I think it might be a good season for Leeds United, one with more prosperous hopes towards the end of the season than there are right now. There's a lot of uncertainty going on right now, and I think those questions might be answered come the end of the season. They're going to finish 15th for me. In 14th position, I have Everton. I think that Frank Lampard and his side are going to have a tough time of it. I think they're going to be dragged into a relegation battle or nearabouts for the almost majority of the season. I just don't see where the quality comes from. I think that they have a good player in Dele Alli. If they can unearth him again, I think that might be something that they've got. But overall, defensively, they look okay. Tarkowski is a good signing, and I think that they do need a couple more additions. They do have Jordan Pickford still, who will be a good base for them. Overall, I just think midfield is a big issue, and I don't see where the pace or power comes from on those wings. Demarai Gray is an okay player, but I think he's more of a real convenience player. I don't think he's a player that's going to grind out those minutes for you. He's not going to grind out those results or those real scoring opportunities that you desperately need when you're that low down in the table. I think that overall a lot of teams are going to exploit the way that Everton play and the lack of a defensive mid that they have. Allen is okay. I just think that I think he's getting it on a bit. I don't think he can cover the ground that he previously could. I worry for Everton because of the financial situation they find themselves in. I don't think they're able to do the business that Frank Lampard wants them to do, to bring in the players that he wants to play in a system, and I worry for them. I really do. I don't think they'll be relegated because I think they'll have enough quality to stay out of it, and I think they will have a system in the end to be able to pick up points, hence why I have them in 14th. I just think that overall it's going to be nowhere near as rosy as I'm sure Everton fans will be optimistic about. Dwight McNeil is a highlight player for me, by the way. I think he's absolutely sensational. Defensively, he's very good, and he's got a wonderful left foot that will really help them create goals for the likes of Calvert-Lewin, who is another major issue for me. I think that Calvert-Lewin is a great player in himself, but he's too injury prone, and they don't have enough cover for him. If you have Calvert-Lewin out, who do you play? You've lost Richarlison, and you're not able to reinvest that money because of the amount of financial issues that you have. It's a concerning time for Everton and their fans, but I think it's one they just have to get through so they're able to get some finances through the door and to be able to try to rejuvenate that squad going forwards. January will be a big window for me with Everton, especially when you consider where they will be afterwards. I'm not sure whether Frank Lampard will be able to keep his job for the entirety of the campaign, but I hope he does. I hope he turns it around, because it's never nice seeing managers get sacked. I have a big concerning red flag about Everton, and I'm yet to be convinced that it's going to change. In 13th position, I have Brighton and Hove Albion, which is quite a drop from their 9th position finish that they had last season. But there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one is Bissouma. I think is a massive miss. He is one of the most integral parts of that Brighton squad. The way he's able to carry and drive the ball and also create passing lanes for other people. He's defensively very good, and he's very mobile as a player. I think he got through a lot of work for that Brighton team and got them ticking. Brighton were at their best when they had Bissouma. On top of that, I don't think they have a good enough striker. I'm not convinced about Neil Maupay, and while I like Enciso, I just think at 18 years old, yes, he's talented and he's got a few goals in Paraguay. Yes, he's done very well. I just wonder whether he's got enough talent, well, not talent, but got enough metal about him to be able to go into a Brighton side in the Premier League, one of the toughest leagues in the world, and create and get goals with them. I really worry about that. Like I said, I'm not sure about Maupay, and Danny Welbeck is getting another year older. I just don't know where the goals are scored from, which is another continuous Brighton issue. They need to find a striker, and they need to find one who was able to put the ball in the back of the net on a consistent basis. Brighton create a ridiculous amount of chances, and the fact that they don't have someone to score is frustrating for both, I'm sure, their fans and myself included. On top of that, I think that Cucurella will probably end up leaving. He's imminently ready for a move, and I think that him putting in a transfer request pretty much seals that. It just depends on which club is going to go for him. Whether Man City are going to up their £40 million bid to the $50 million that Brighton want, or whether Chelsea are going to come in and hijack their deal, I think it's pretty certain that he's going to be leaving, which is another massive, massive loss to the squad. He was their player of the season last season. I think that he's going to be extremely difficult to replace. Whether they can replace him or not is interesting, but I don't think they're going to be able to get the quality of player that Cucurella was for that Brighton side. So I think they're going to drop down a few places. Still, nothing to be worried about. It's still a fairly mid-table finish. Perhaps a bit lower down than I think Brighton fans will be used to, especially after that really blockbuster season they had last season, finishing 9th. But it's nothing too crazy. I think they're able to get another year into Enciso, and I think they're going to be able to go forwards. It's not going to be too crazy for Brighton, nothing too spectacular, but standard, and you'll be playing that beautiful football once again. In 12th position, I have Wolverhampton Wanderers. It's going to be much of the same for Bruno Lage's side. Raul Jimenez will be missing the start of the season with injury, and that's just not good for any part of that side. He is their main goal scorer. The forwards, all of the forwards put together, scored 8 goals between them in the entire season, apart from Jimenez, and that's just not good enough. Creatively, I just don't think they have enough going forwards, and I think it's a bit of an issue. This 3 at the back is really starting to stifle that creativity, and I think we saw that last season. A move to 4 at the back, I think, will really help them creatively, and bringing in Nathan Collins, I think, might be the answer to that. I think he might be able to partner someone to be able to create a stable back 2. I like Aït-Nouri and I like Semedo, and I think as long as they keep Semedo reined in, I think Aït-Nouri's got another good year in him to grow and develop. I think they're going to be able to create an attacking side. Neves and Moutinho are creative players. I just think they're stifled in the way that 3 at the back system works. They have good players. Neto I really like. I like Hwang. I like Podence. If they can create a system in which they have either narrow wingers or some kind of a false 9 system to be able to help Jimenez and not have him so isolated, I really think Wolves will benefit from that. Overall, at the moment, they need another striker, in my opinion, if they're going to raise themselves up the table and get that little bit higher to finish in the top 10. I just don't really see it at the moment. Again, like I've been saying, there is another month left in the transfer window, and hope Wolves delve into it to try and find a striker that can score them some goals, or at least help Jimenez out, because he desperately needs it. A lot of pressure is being put on his shoulders, and I haven't really seen Jimenez of old ever since that horrific injury that he had. He needs help, and I think Wolves need to try and find someone to be able to give him that. Fabio Silva was not the answer. Perhaps he might be in a few years, but they need help now, and Jimenez needs a little bit of respite to be able to find his form once again. If they don't and it stays the same, I can see them finishing in 12th. They've got a good defence, but they really lack going forwards. In 11th place, I have Crystal Palace. Palace are doing something quite special in my opinion. They have young, forward attacking talent, as well as a good, young, solid back line. Mark Gahey and Anderson are fantastic, and I think that going forwards, yes, they're missing Conor Gallagher, but they do have players like Olise, like Ebere Eze, like Wilfried Zaha to combine with Edouard and Mateta. They're creating something really special, and I do think that in centre defensive midfield and in midfield, I think Patrick Vieira is going to be able to get hands on that midfield to try and mould it into the way that he likes. I'm really impressed with Crystal Palace, and I was impressed with them last season. They've added now, and I think they're going to have a bit more solidity, a bit more going forwards as well, especially with all of the front players that I've just mentioned, a year older and a year more experienced, which is something that was labelled at them, their lack of experience last year. I think that they're going to be able to climb those places a little bit further and then try to make their way towards the top 10. I think they'll just miss out on the top 10, but I think it'll be a good, exciting season. Watch out for Crystal Palace because they're going to be playing some good football, some entertaining football, and they might surprise a few. Crystal Palace and Patrick Vieira are some really good shouts, and I like what's going on there. They're 11th for me. In 10th position, I have Newcastle United. Eddie Howe's side are lower for me than I think most people have them. I just don't think they're going to be making the leaps that a lot of people will expect them to. I know that they did well last season, especially in the second half, and they got the most points from the teams around them, but I just don't see how they grow that much further without a lot of investment in attacking talent. I've noticed recently they've been looking at James Maddison. That would be a good acquisition, but I think they need a little bit more. I think Ryan Fraser just isn't quite cutting it, and I'm sorry, but Alan Saint-Maximin does not have the end product that I think is needed for a top 10 finish. He's fantastic, he's brilliant, he's got loads of skills, and he's got a bucket load of entertainment value. I just don't think that he's quite got it. I'm willing to be changed, I'm willing to have my opinion altered, but at the moment for me he's just far too inconsistent to be able to get continuous numbers. Callum Wilson will get injured at some point during the season, and they don't really have a backup for that. Bruno Guimaraes, with all his creativity and all his ability, I'm just not sure is going to be able to catapult that side and that attacking four as far up the table as I think a lot of people want them to. Kieran Trippier will get a load of assists and a load of goals, but again, the cogs that are there aren't quite there to get them anywhere near higher than 10th, in my opinion. Sven Botman is a fantastic signing, and so is Nick Pope, so defensively they will be sound. I just worry about them going forwards, especially when other teams are now going to have their eye on Newcastle. Newcastle are a quantity that will be valued by a lot of top clubs, and I think that they're going to take them seriously. They're no longer the team that you just rock up and try to play, and Newcastle might get a dodgy result. Newcastle will be looked at, analysed, and they will prepare for them. And I think it's that quality that I'm not sure is being valued high enough. Newcastle are a team to watch now, and I think every team is going to make their due preparations for them. They're going to finish 10th for me. And in 9th position, I have Leicester City. Leicester City, who finished in 8th last season, they did okay considering their horrendous start. They had a load of injuries and they should be back, but I do think they're going to lose some players. They have a horrendously large wage bill, and I think they need to get some people off the books. One of those players will probably be Yuri Tielemans, and I'm not sure they have the finances to be able to replace him with the same level of quality. Jamie Vardy is an extra year older, and he's almost 35 now, or he is 35, and I'm not sure how many games he's going to be able to play. 20 plus, maybe 25 max. I'm just not sure whether they're going to have the same firepower as they have previously. Patson Daka is going to need to have a great season, and I do back him to do quite well. I just wonder whether him and Harvey Barnes are the only ones carrying the line. I'm just not sure where the creativity and goals consistently are going to come from. Then you need to look at the other players that they might be losing, the likes of Wesley Fofana, who's getting a lot of interest from Chelsea, and the likes of James Maddison, who Newcastle United like so much they want to put in a £50 million bid for. If they can keep those two, I don't see them dropping any further, but I also don't see them going any higher than 9th. I think it's time for a rejuvenation of this Leicester side, and once they get some players off their books who are on those big wages, I think they're going to be able to resettle the squad and go again. But for now, it's going to be another middling season around about 9th. Top 10 finish isn't that bad, but I think in comparison to where they've been doing the last few years, I do think it's going to be a bit of drop-off for Leicester City, who would be looking to bounce back after a fairly poor finish in 8th last season. They're 9th for me. In a rather surprise turn of events, I'm sure, I've got Aston Villa finishing in 8th. I think it's now do or die for Steven Gerrard and his men, and I do think that Gerrard is going to get the best out of them. I think he's a good manager, and he did extremely well at Rangers. I think it's a matter of time before he's able to find his best starting 11 and really start to get points on the board. Leon Bailey is a player they need to keep fit, but they do keep him fit. He's an explosive, exciting player. Buendia is now going to have another season in the Premier League, and linked with Coutinho and trying to learn from Coutinho, I think he's going to be able to evolve his game. They've made some decent signings as well with Carlos as a centre-back, and I think that overall they're going to be okay. I think that generally going forwards, they've got a good making of a squad, and they have enough firepower in Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings to be able to go forward and score goals. The creativity issue was there, but I think that Buendia learning from Coutinho might fix that. Leon Bailey offers a good alternative, and his power and presence, if they can keep him fit, are going to be able to create a load of chances. I think Aston Villa are going to take some teams by surprise in the way that they set up and how defensively strong they're going to be. Overall, I think Aston Villa are going to have a good season. They're not going to make it too high, but 8th I think is a very, very good achievement, especially when you consider that they finished 14th last season. It's 8th for me for Aston Villa, a team to watch out for. In 7th, I have West Ham United. West Ham have strengthened somewhat, especially with Gianluca Scamacca, a statement signing from the Hammers, and I do think he's going to do very, very well for them. Not only is he very tall and he'll be able to do that aerial presence that David Moyes really likes from his centre forwards, he's good at taking the ball down, he's good at interlinking with other players, and he's got a good touch in him. I do think that he's going to be quite a revelation for West Ham, who offers a lot more varied qualities than Mikel Antonio. Don't get me wrong, I really like Antonio and I think he's a very, very good player. He works incredibly hard and he's got some quality on him now. He's really turned into quite the centre forward. But Scamacca has a higher ceiling in my opinion, one that is able to bring players into play a little bit better than Antonio, and one that might create something out of nothing a little bit more as well. I think he's got a lot of quality about him. It might take him some time to adapt to the Premier League, but I do think that West Ham are going to have a good season with him. You also need to take into consideration where they are in Europe. They are in the Europa Conference League, and I do think they'll be looking at trying to win that competition. They have a good enough squad to be able to go far in it, and I do think that they were a bit disappointed with the way their Europa League finished. They went out in the semi-finals, and I think that they will imagine that if they did that well in the Europa League, they should be going on to the final at the very least in the Europa Conference League. It's going to be a good season for West Ham, I think, and I can see Declan Rice improving yet again. I can see Souček forming another good partnership with him. They have a stable back four. Aguerd, the injury to the start of the season is an unfortunate one, but once he comes into that side, I do think that he's going to make them very difficult to play against. Look for Jarrod Bowen to have another good season. I do see a lot of promising things for West Ham. Ben Rama I can see coming into his own as well, with Fornals in the middle. West Ham have a good side. Not quite good enough to break into that top 6, but I think they're by far settled for 7th. Scamacca could surprise a lot of people and push them up that little bit higher. I just can't quite see it in his first season. West Ham are 7th for me. In 6th position, I have Manchester United. Erik ten Hag has come in to attempt to rejuvenate this team, to rejuvenate the squad, and to bring out the best in the players that they have still in the club. I think he will do that to a certain extent, and I do think that Manchester United will start to play better football. They'll have a better belief about them, and I do think they will get a couple of results that might seem like they're getting better and improving. I just don't think it's going to be anywhere near enough to be able to climb the table to the point that they want to be at, to be either in the Champions League places or of course challenging for the title. They are by nowhere means close to that, and they're light years and stratospheres away, if I'm completely honest. I think that they need to be looking at different ideas and at different projects and prospects for this season. I think it is very much a project that they're trying to go through, and you need to give it some time to get over and bed into the team. Overall, their signings have not been good at all. I think that Lisandro Martinez is a good addition. His height is going to be questioned in the Premier League. Tyrone Malacia is decent, and I think that Christian Eriksen is obviously a quality signing, but not one that you're going to be expecting to start every single game, especially with him being 30 years old. So they need players. Their failure to attract and get Frankie de Jong has really hampered their transfer progress, and it looks like it's going to go through and they're not going to have an addition. They're not going to have any kind of different player to go for. They're not going to have a different option, a second option, which means they're going to be left light with Scott McTominay and Fred once again at the heart of midfield, and the same questions are going to be asked by Manchester United fans as to why the midfield yet again has not been improved. Cristiano Ronaldo is another player that needs to be talked about because his shadow, his cloud, his looming thunderstorm is high above Old Trafford, creating a dismal time at the club. He needs to seriously move on in any way, shape or form because he's creating just a negative atmosphere, and I think that if he's at the club, I can see Manchester United dipping below 6th to around the 7th or 8th place. I think it'll become very, very toxic very quickly, and I think if he doesn't get his move, he will turn that dressing room yet again into another toxic atmosphere, toxic vibe, something that the club, the team, the manager, Erik ten Hag, does not need. If they get him out the door, I can see them finishing 6th, but no higher because of the sheer quality of teams above them. 6th for Manchester United. We're getting towards the business end of the Premier League now, and I have Chelsea. Yes, Chelsea are going to be in 5th. They're going to miss out on that 4th position. They are just going to miss out on Champions League football because I just don't see where the plan is. Thomas Tuchel is a very, very good manager and he has a good squad, but there are clear problems in there and I just don't understand why they're not fixing it. They clearly have a striking problem. They've let go of Romelu Lukaku, which is fine. He wasn't the answer, but you need to replace that. Are you expecting Kai Havertz to get double digits? Are you expecting him to get 20 goals in the season? If not, you need a striker. Raheem Sterling will add something to that team and he will add goals and he will add assists, but are they going to keep them? Is he going to keep them up in that top 4 place? I'm not so sure. They are losing the likes of Kante and Jorginho to age. They're not necessarily going to be leaving the club, but I just don't think they're having the impact on games that they used to. They've also lost Antonio Rudiger and Andreas Christensen, centre-backs who are and did play a pivotal role in Chelsea's season last year. Yes, they've brought in Koulibaly, but I do think they need something more. I'm not sure that going after Cucurella is the correct decision to be making, especially when you need defensive reinforcements and a striking option. They also need probably a centre defensive midfielder or some kind of holding midfielder to be able to allow them to go forwards. I don't know what kind of team they want to play, and I just think it's a complete mess. Todd Bowley has appointed himself as sporting director, and as far as I can see, he's just trying to go to every single club in an attempt to throw money at them for a player. I don't think there's any strategy behind this, and to be honest, it's a bit of a mess, and I'm not sure where Chelsea are going to end up after this, because it could end up falling and really blowing up in their face. Thomas Tuchel might get the rap for this, and I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea decided to pull the trigger on him if he's not doing well with the poor squad or the poorly knitted squad that he's been handed. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that it's his job to try and get something out of this team, but it's a very disjointed team, and you can see something starting to happen here. Thomas Tuchel has a reputation of disagreeing with owners when he doesn't get the transfer business that he wants, and I understand that Chelsea are going through a transition, but really, is Todd Bowley appointing himself as sporting director really the smartest thing for the club in itself? Or is there something else going on? There are so many questions around Chelsea that I just don't think they have the consistency or the solidity to be able to stake a claim for those top 4 spaces, which is why I have Chelsea in 5th. In 4th place, I have Arsenal. Yes, they are making those Champions League places. They are getting into European football. Fantastic. I really see what Arteta is trying to do with Arsenal, and I think that Gabriel Jesus is a massive part of that. A goal scorer that will work hard for you, that will really try, and that will really work as hard as he possibly can for the team. He seems to have really bought into the ethos of Arsenal. Combine that with Saka a year older and a year more experienced, Smith Rowe the same, Martin Odegaard is now captain, he's been given the licence and the support of Mikel Arteta, as well as the exciting Gabriel Martinelli. I really don't see where this goes wrong for Arsenal. Perhaps injury might play a part again. I think they could do with a replacement or a addition in midfield to try and help out Thomas Partey if he ever gets injured. But apart from that, defensively they look solid. William Saliba coming back off loan is like a new signing. I know that's a very, very cliche and niche thing to say, but I really think he is. He's a quality player and he's fit into that Arsenal backline almost seamlessly if you judge by pre-season. And I think that performances in pre-season you can really look at. The results not so much, but the performances and the way the teams play with each other, I really do think that's a big telltale statement. You then look at the rest of the players. Ben White had a very good season last year and he'll have another season of experience. Same with Gabriel. Aaron Ramsdale really showcased what he could do. I really like what Arsenal are doing, and they've also made additions in terms of Fabio Vieira, who could play a central attacking midfield role or as a high number 8 in those Europa League games. So they do have strength and depth as well. I think they're going to have enough. I think they've got quality in their squad. Mikel Arteta seems to be creating a very fluid foot forward facing side, one that really likes to be on the front foot, one that really likes to be attacking, driving at the opponent with quality, pace, pressing. A lot of things to be excited for if you're an Arsenal fan. Arsenal fans, I think you're going to have a fantastic season, so enjoy it. I've got Arsenal finishing in 4th. One place higher, I have Antonio Conte's Tottenham. Yes, I think they're going to be finishing in 3rd. I think they've made some extremely good business. Yves Bissouma is one of the signings of the season, in my opinion. I really like the free transfer of Ivan Perisic. I think that Jed Spence is a fantastic addition. And don't forget Richarlison. If he can score 10 goals, perhaps get 5 assists, that's going to catapult this Spurs side with the likes of Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, Kulusevski, as well as the driving force of Højbjerg, Bentancur. They have a fantastic squad. Not to forget, they also have left centre-back addition in terms of Clement Longley, a player from Barcelona who has struggled, but I think he can be reborn in this Conte team. Overall, I think that Tottenham have a fantastic ability to make it higher in this Premier League table. I think that top 4 is almost guaranteed for them with the quality of squad that they have and the manager that they have. That kind of managerial drive, I think, is going to really, without making a pun, spur them on to greater and better heights. I'm not sure how they're going to do in the Champions League because Conte is notoriously quite poor in managing the Champions League. He likes his league format. He likes to make sure he has the strongest 11 out every single week. So on the Champions League front, I'm not so sure, but when it comes to the Premier League, I really do think that they're going to be pushing for those top places. I'm not sure whether they're going to be able to really compete with Liverpool and Man City when it comes to the business end of the season, but I think they're going to be there or thereabouts, perhaps a few points off, perhaps 5 or 6 points off, but I do think they're going to be there. Antonio Conte's men are going to be driving for that Premier League, and although I don't think they'll get it, I think they'll have to settle for a very, very good finish in 3rd. It's time for the top 2, and in 2nd place, I have Liverpool. Yes, I think they're going to miss out on that Premier League title yet again. Darwin Núñez is their major summer signing, and I think that although he will be amazing, I really do think that I think he'll be great later on. I do wonder how consistent he's going to be at the start of the Premier League. They've lost Sadio Mane, and I know all of you Liverpool fans are going to be telling me, yes, but they've replaced him with Luis Diaz. It's going to be fine. They replace him. I think that Mane offers so much more than that. Yes, Diaz is really good and really mobile, but I think the way that Mane understands the game, the way he understands how to cut off passing lanes, the way he understands positioning, and the way he understands how to play into certain patterns, I think is something that's invaluable that Luis Diaz just hasn't learned yet. I have no doubt that Jurgen Klopp sees him as a brilliant forward, but that's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the level of quality that Mane offered was not just numbers, it was the mental game that he brought to this side, and I just don't think Liverpool have been able to replace that, which isn't their fault. It's just a quality signing. Darwin Núñez, I think, will get some goals, and I think he'll get a lot of plaudits with that. I do think he might be a little bit inconsistent though. His touch is a little bit off, and I can see him being a little bit nervous in front of goal. However, that goal in the Community Shield will do him the world of good, and wouldn't surprise me if he went on a little bit of a scoring run. I just don't think he's going to be as consistent as he needs to be to keep Liverpool firing towards that Premier League title. I think that Jurgen Klopp and his men are going to be one of the best teams in the country, along with Man City. I can see those two riding off in the sunset again together, battling it out. I just don't think that Liverpool are going to have enough at the end of the day to be able to push Man City with the way that they have improved their squad. I think Liverpool are going to have to adapt to Darwin Núñez, and Darwin Núñez are going to have to adapt to Liverpool in the way that they want to play. That means I think they're going to drop some points, maybe not a lot, but some points that's going to make the difference in this title challenge. I've got Liverpool in second, which of course means that I have Manchester City as my champions. Erling Haaland, I think, is going to be the difference here. I know they've lost Sterling, I know they've lost Jesus, and I know that they're going to have to play a different style. Like I said with Darwin Núñez, because they're the same profile of player, and because both of these sides play differently, I do think that Man City are going to need to adapt to Erling Haaland, and Erling Haaland is going to need to adapt to Man City. They're going to need to find different patterns of play. They're going to need to find different ways of rotating the ball around the pitch and making sure that they utilise Haaland and his strengths. It's going to take time, and City are notoriously slow burners at the beginning of the Premier League, but they do catch fire around about January. On top of that, I do think the World Cup is going to play a massive part, which I haven't mentioned all too many times in this video, if at all, but I do think it will play a part, and it will play a part specifically for Haaland, because when every other striker is off at the World Cup, or most of them are, Erling Haaland won't be, because sadly his country just didn't make it, which means he'll be training, he'll be recovering, and he'll be making sure that he is as fit as ever to be able to play for Man City when the season resumes. That's massive in my opinion, because I think that he's a fantastic striker and possibly one of the best strikers in the league already. I just think it's a matter of Manchester City finding him and utilising his strengths, which I think they will do. I think Pep Guardiola is a very, very good manager, not to say that Jurgen Klopp isn't. I just think that the actual method of playing might suit Man City and Haaland more than Darwin Núñez and Liverpool. On top of that, I just think that Man City's squad is absolutely ridiculous, and it's just the way they play and the way they break teams down. I just can see them getting an abundance of goals. Jack Grealish, I think, will be making a star appearance this season, and I think he'll be able to really put up the numbers that I think are expected of him, being that £100 billion man. I think with Sterling gone, I think you're going to see Grealish being given far more of a license to play on that left-hand side, and perhaps moving inside a little bit as well. Overall, I think that Man City are going to have far too much firepower for the Premier League without Haaland, because I think that Julian Alvarez is actually another sensational signing. But I do think that Haaland is going to make that difference. I think he's going to make that difference between him and Núñez and Man City and Liverpool. So Man City are my Premier League champions. And there you have it. That is my Premier League table. It's got some wild takes in it, it's got some wild thoughts, but that is what I think is going to happen at the end of the season. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about my Premier League table, and how do you think your team is going to do this season? Do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me? How do you think the Premier League table is going to pan out from your perspective? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. It's just a bit of fun. Let's talk about the Premier League. It's just around the corner. This is my table, and I'm excited for it to all get going. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave it with a like, and subscribe if you haven't for more content like this coming very soon. The Premier League is around the corner, so we have a lot of content coming your way. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought about my Premier League table. Like I said, let me know what yours looks like, and how do you think the season is going to pan out for all of these clubs. I'm really excited to see what you think. Of course, you can always let me know on Twitter. You can find me at Zekko64. That's generally where I post, or when I post when my videos go live. But of course, you can always know that by hitting that notification bell so that you never miss an upload. That's it from me for today. I know it was a long one, but thank you for sticking with me. There was a lot to go over. There was a lot to talk about. I'm just so excited for the league to start, and we're only just a few days away. Exciting times. But that's it from me for today. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, take care of yourselves, and bye-bye.